Happy Easter, everyone!
He is risen!
It's good to see you guys and to share an Easter lesson with you. We hope that it will be useful for you guys. It's a super interesting time for Easter. I don't think many people or anyone's really had an Easter like this. But throughout this week, I've been thinking about all the things that we count on and things that are super dependable, like having church service. You can bank on that, right? And our economy doing well, people having jobs. There have been all these things that previously I had been pretty sure of, and now I'm not. There's a lot of uncertainty and things that I had been counting on that it's maybe I shouldn't put so much faith in that.
Yeah, and with everything that's been canceled, it's interesting. I have found that I don't feel like I've properly mourned the loss of a lot of things. I've honestly just been able to rush over what's been canceled and try to seek the positive. But there's been a lot that's canceled that's really sad. To be transparent with you guys and honest with you, Brian and I, our families were going to come and visit. Brian's parents did get to come, some of you guys got to meet them. My parents were going to come visit and some friends, and that getting canceled, not knowing, when we're going to see family again. Some of you might even be in the same town as family, but quarantined away from them, and you don't know when you're going to see those people again. We don't know when we're going to see you again. There's this big question mark of all these events getting canceled, including church things, and to have Easter canceled is a huge loss too, because this huge day that we celebrate at church together, and that is a time when a lot of people prioritize coming, isn't going to happen at church on site.
So if you thought that I was just wearing this for fun, you were right. But there's also a point of why I'm wearing my Tennessee jersey. So when I was a student there, 2014, my first year as a student, we had lost 9 times in a row to Florida. And Florida's our biggest rival, so I was super excited, we're finally going to beat Florida. And we lost 10-9. Which was the closest we had been in a long time. So we lose by 1 point. That was a home game. And then the next year, we're losing 28-27. We have a last-second field goal, and we miss by a foot. Lose by 1 point again. So going into my last year at UT, we had lost 11 in a row to our biggest rival. And we were just tired of it. I mean, losing to Florida is the worst, and it just happened over and over and over again in the most painful kind of way. So I'm super excited about this game. I really think that we have a chance. And by halftime of this third year, Florida's up 21-3. And a lot of fans left the stadium. A lot of students especially just straight up left. They were like, here we go again. They always beat us. We'll never beat them. We're out. And I stayed, and it was really hard during halftime because we were all just sitting there kind of depressed, really sad, just man, this is the worst. Not only were we losing again, but they were killing us. We had scored 3 points. So long story short, come out of halftime, score a touchdown, score another touchdown. We end up scoring 5 touchdowns in a row. We score 38. We end up winning 38-28. This huge comeback. We were right there in front of the end zones, and they had cameras hanging off the goalposts. They ended up taking those down because they were thinking that the students were going to rush the field after we won. So we had this amazing moment as a fan. The players end up jumping into the crowd, so I'm partying with the players. I get a glove from one of the players and stuff. So as a sports fan, this was that moment, right? 11 years of just getting beaten down. And we are able to come back, win this game in this amazing way as my last year as a student. So that's one of my favorite memories of Tennessee football.
As you know, Brian and I are Tennessee fans, so we love Tennessee orange, the color of Brian's jersey. Absolutely love it. And as you know, there has been a massive amount of Tennessee orange flowers all over the Bay Area. Come to find out, I got to learn that they are actually called California poppies. They're a state flower, so it was new to me to learn that information, but they are Tennessee orange. And I have fallen in love with these flowers. I think they're so beautiful. And I was informed that you're not supposed to pick them wild, but I was able to get some legally. And so I had some in a vase at our house. And a lot of you may know, some of you might not know this, but
California poppies close with the sun and they open with the sun. So they go to sleep at night, essentially. Like the flower closes up, and then in the morning when they see the sun, they bloom back open, which is really, really cool. And I was uncertain if when they were in a vase in my house, once they closed up, I didn't know if they were going to open up again, because they weren't with their root into the ground. And so I woke up the next morning after they were in the vase, and I was so excited to go in the kitchen, which is where they were, to see if they had opened back up again, and they hadn't. And I thought, oh, okay, like they're not going to open. And I was kind of defeated, like, okay, like they're just going to stay closed up, but they're still a pretty color orange. And I went for a run, and I came back, and the sun had come out during my run, and the poppies had opened up. And I was so excited because I wasn't expecting it. I was expecting it that morning when I first woke up, but I had kind of just taken the defeat and thought that they weren't going to open up again. But sure enough, they opened up. And those poppies that are outside, like they'll open up. If they close up tonight, they'll open up tomorrow. Which is just this really beautiful story that they open with the sun. The sun raises them, and like the sun is sure to come tomorrow unless the Lord comes first. The sun is going to come again. And so that offers me a glimmer of hope. But when I think about with Jesus' death and his burial before the resurrection, the amount of defeat that the disciples must have been experiencing. They were on his team, they were rooting for him, they're totally decked out, like we're the Jesus guys. And then he dies. Like the one thing that they were standing for and rooting for is dead. And death is this, like, people hadn't conquered death, right? Like they didn't come up with a vaccine for death. People had been dying and dying and dying, and then Jesus dies. But then, the ultimate comeback of the century, Jesus comes back from the dead. The sun rises and he comes back. So I'm going to read out of Mark 16. So we have the story of Jesus in all four Gospels. So this is Mark, the second book of the New Testament. So I'm going to be in Mark 16. Verse 1. When the Sabbath was past, Mary Magdalene, Mary the mother of James, and Salome brought spices so they might go and anoint him. And very early on the first day of the week, when the sun had risen, they went to the tomb. And they were saying to one another, "Who will roll away the stone for us from the entrance of the tomb?" And looking up, they saw that the stone had been rolled back, and it was very large. And entering the tomb, they saw a young man sitting on the right side, dressed in a white robe. And they were alarmed. And he said to them, "Do not be alarmed. You seek Jesus of Nazareth, who was crucified. He has risen. He is not here. See, this is the place where they laid him. But go, tell his disciples and Peter that he is going before you to Galilee. There you will see him, just as he told you." You will see him just as he told you. As surely as the sun rises, Jesus defeated death. And we have all of these things around us that are reminders of that, like the sun rising. I think of even in Harry Potter, in one of the movies, Dumbledore is talking about how even the glimmer of hope can be found when you turn on a light. I want you to imagine when you were a child and you were scared and the room was dark, even if someone just turned on a light, or if you had the small hope of a nightlight, how it seemed like everything was okay. Or if you could just crack your closet door open if there was a light in there, it seemed like everything was okay. Our glimmer of hope right now is as sure as the sun rising. It is Jesus has risen from the grave.
So I think back to that moment, like, that was an amazing moment for me as a fan, and especially being a student there. A lot of happiness and joy in that moment of just like all of those years of burden just being lifted and finally being Florida. And then I think about this story that Lauren just talked about. I mean, Florida's a pretty daunting opponent. They're a big SEC school. They're a great team. They don't compare to death. No one has ever beaten death. And Jesus did just that. So just imagine the disciples. Imagine how low they were before they heard the news, before they saw Jesus again, when he had risen. I mean, that's the lowest of lows. They put all of their hope, all of their faith, all of their time, their social status on the line for Jesus. And then he leaves them. He dies. They thought that was impossible. they're hiding, they're scared. And then they find out that he is risen. That's the moment. That is the pure joy that they feel from that. That is what Easter is about for us. That is Easter. And I found this awesome quote from Henry Nouwen. It says, "If we know ourselves to be unconditionally loved like that, if we know even death is not the end, we are dangerously free to love and surrender all for Christ. We can go anywhere, even if it means we have to look deep into the heart of our own fear. We can go to the most terrifying place in the world because we know we are loved beyond the boundaries of the world." So that's our encouragement to you today. Like, Jesus' love goes past this world, past death, past all of the boundaries that we normally know. And during this time when all of these things are being taken away and canceled and are becoming unreliable, on Easter we get to celebrate that Jesus is risen. So the most important thing that ever happened in history is also the most reliable thing that has ever happened. We know that Jesus died, was buried, and now he is risen. And that is the joy that we have in the Lord today. So let that be a blessing to you and your family, and let's celebrate Easter. I know it's going to be weird, it's going to be different. Excuse me. Doing an online service is not what we want to be doing for Easter. But let's not let the enemy win of putting this blanket on Easter. We can still have that joy with our families and our homes and watching an online service, and we can still celebrate and proclaim Jesus as our King.